Good evening, guys. I just wanted to show you I am not done with Carol McWilliams, Jack McWilliams, and Donald Kelly and the murder from 1969. The other day we did a session upstairs which was not supposed to be on that, and Carol and Jack both came through and were giving us details about that murder. Carol, are you here? Do you have something you want to tell us? And it's making my skin crawl just talking about it, because I'll show you guys. I've invested in newspapers.com, and you can buy a subscription and go back and look at every newspaper from your town or towns all over Canada, United States, all over the world. And this is an invaluable tool. I thought this would be great for metal detecting. You know, we could look up old things in terms of historic things and that. But then when this murder happened and, you know, Jack and Carol keep interjecting in our sessions, I needed to educate myself on what happened and some of the facts. And I have collected over a dozen newspaper articles, court case, trial stuff. There's all kinds of stuff in here. And guys, we are going to go through it. I've talked to Grant, and he says he's done. He says he covered this story. You know, he did a few sessions on it. But I don't think we're done, because Carol and Jack keep coming through multiple times in multiple videos and giving us information. And it feels to me like they have information they want us to know or learn about. I mean, it's weird because the killer is dead. But there was always the question of, did Donald Kelly pull the trigger? And as soon as I say that, I'm reminded that's what they said in the last video that I did. It said, pull the trigger. Full body shivers. Slime. Like somebody was telling somebody else, pull the trigger. And that was one of the things that was covered in the trial, was that the third person, there was two guys that were accused with Donald Kelly. And I guess the third one, they said he was the one who actually pulled the trigger. And he wasn't as crazy as Donald Kelly was known to be in town. But I want to cover all of that stuff. I want to get into detail. I want to give you guys details of it. And I want to cover it because something my gut, my intuition is telling me we need to do more sessions on this. We need to get more information from them. Now I can collaborate what the spirit box is saying with some facts from newspaper clippings. So over the course of this winter, guys, I want to delve deeply into this case. I want to talk about all of the players, all of the characters. You know, the manhunt that went on after for Donald Kelly. Can we get any more hidden facts, secret things? Do anything that the Spirit Box say or has said in the past, can it be, you know, proven by facts that we find in old clippings and newspapers? I don't know. This stuff blows my mind. There is more to this than we can say, guys. Why is my Spirit Box app, if this is phony baloney stuff, giving me the names of these guys and telling me they were shot in the head and all the other things and details that her hair caught on fire? Oh, and we can prove. I read a section in here that talks about exactly that. Here's a piece of expert testimony from a forensics guy that states There were fragments of lead and blackened powder on the pieces of skin that I examined, and this is consistent with the shot that was fired 12 to 18 inches from the skin. Okay, so it is the next day, and I have found over 30 articles, and I'm sure there are many more to come. I've just done a search using each of the players' names in this case. I think, guys, what is going to happen is we're going to have to do multiple sessions on this case where we're going to discuss the actual facts found in the newspapers, and then we're going to do a spirit box session to accompany each of these things. So what has to happen is we need to start at the beginning, and I need to tell you guys who the players were in this murder case and give you a little bit of history, points and things that I'm finding in the actual newspaper articles and clippings. And let me tell you, these three guys were bad dudes. Okay, so what happened was back in 1969, Carol Ann McWilliams and her brother-in-law, Jack Berthall McWilliams. And it's important that we get all of these names, including middle names, because we may hear some of that. I also found, I'll just throw this in here, a couple of nicknames for Carol Ann. And that was in one of the articles referring to when the prosecutors were questioning her landlady. They mentioned two nicknames for Carol Ann. I'll give you those right now. Defense counsel Dave Humphrey asked Miss Gautier, she was the landlady, if Kelly had told her that Corky or Khaki McWilliams was a prostitute. Okay, so I just want to get those names out there. Corky or Khaki McWilliams. So those were nicknames for Carol Ann McWilliams. Now, on the note of this landlady, let's just throw this out here. In the last video, I heard "Don't Help" and "Anthony." Clearly, I heard the word Anthony. Her name was actually Antoinette. Was that her nickname? You know, so something funny going on there. The spirits will work in funny ways. I just want to make sure we have all of those names, okay? Carol Ann McWilliams, victim number 1. Jack Berthall McWilliams, victim number 2. The guys that allegedly did the murder, and we will go through the trial, and that all happened 7 years after the fact. Okay, these murders happened in 1969. The trial was 1976. And the names of the accused were final addresses from lawyers heard in Lavin Rose trial. I just found something interesting. There's another name here that I'm not aware of. Again, I'm just getting into this, guys, and I'm reading bits and blurbs here. I haven't read all 30 pages of these articles. So this one here actually mentions another name I was not aware of. And it says, Crown Attorney John Greenwood, in his address, said that the 1969 slaying of Carol and Jack McWilliams was a planned assassination executed in gangland fashion. It is Mr. Greenwood's contention that Donald Kelly, James Lavin, and Ian Rose, those were the three main guys that were supposedly there on the bridge that night when the two victims were shot. Here's the fourth name I just learned of. And Jerry Roy conspired to kill the McWilliams and carried out the conspiracy. I don't know who Jerry Roy is. I've never heard that name before. I'm learning new stuff all the time. But those are the main players. Now, so there we have the victims' names, the accused names. There was a lot to this case, guys. I almost feel like I need to see if there was ever a book written on this, because they talk about, I'm going to be all over the place with this, guys. I've never done a video series of this magnitude, of this story, where I'm just getting little pieces from the newspaper articles, clippings here and there, and I'm trying to piece together what happened. But let's just say that leading up to these two murders, there was a crime spree in 1969. And we can touch on that. You know, the Case Populaire was robbed here in town before these murders happened, and the bank manager was shot in the stomach by 3 hooded men. Well, these 3 hooded men also went on to rob the CNR Railway of 6,000 coins. Quarters, okay? Where were these quarters? Where did they end up? This is the first I've ever heard of it, but there's a news article here talking about it. Were they ever found? I don't know. Can we get that information from the spirits? Hey, metal detecting guy, I'd like to find 6,000 quarters. But sticking to the case, there was a whole spree of things that happened. They talk about parties that these guys were having downtown on Castle Street in the apartment they lived in, where there was gunplay. They would get drunk and rowdy, pull out guns, and shoot. In the apartment, they shot vases, the wall. And then later on, there was witnesses that came forward and said, you know, they went back to the apartment and they were tearing the walls apart, trying to get the bullets out of the walls because they knew that they had murdered these two people and they didn't want there to be any evidence from their apartment linking them to a gun that would link them to these murders. There's so much to cover in this, guys. And I don't want to just cover all of these newspaper clippings. I want to speak with the victims and the accused, and I want them to come through the spirit box and give us their take and information on it. Now, on top of all of this pre-murder spree, and then the murder itself, there was another whole incident that happened in 1975 where Donald Kelly escaped from the North Bay jail, and it was one of the most famous Canadian cases of escape because he left and he went on like a 30-day spree of violence and outrunning the police. He took hostages up at a campground, you know, maybe 80 kilometers from here called Diver. And he held 11 people hostage, I believe. We'll get into that. There's details, you know. Then he escaped and then he went back towards Sudbury, you know, 200 kilometers to the west of here. And eventually he was caught and shot in the little town of Skeed. But during that struggle, he also shot the police dog, supposedly shot, there's controversy there, Cloud. And that became world news as well. Cloud was actually buried as a hero at the old police station here in town. They built a new police station, and just a year or two ago, they exhumed Cloud's body and they moved it over to the new police station. That's how big of a deal it was. There is so much to cover in this case and about these guys they were just terrible guys, the things they did. And I want to cover all of it, but I want to get messages from the spirit box. So it's like a double-edged sword. The more we know going into this, the more we can not dismiss the answers we get. I can say, oh, I heard somebody's middle name. I heard somebody's landlord's name. I heard, you know, coins. I heard whatever that we can tie. We heard the case populaire, whatever the case may be. But that also, I question, you know, is that leading me down the wrong path by knowing more? Because then I have to question, am I just putting these words to what we're hearing? Because it's not the clearest stuff sometimes that comes through these boxes, right? And we'll call it ear pareidolia, right? Pareidolia is the case where you think you see faces where there are no faces, like in the bush line, right? Bigfooters all the time say, hey, there's a Bigfoot in that photo. That's called pareidolia, where your mind sees something, says, oh, there's a face. It recognizes things that aren't there. Well, the same thing can happen with your ears, is what I'm postulating. I know this happens. So you guys might not hear what I hear. Sometimes it's very clear. Other times it's not. Let's just get into it, guys. There's so much that I want to cover. We need to do another session right now and see what comes through. So now I want to do a bit of a spirit box session, but I want the spirits to lead where this investigation goes. I don't want to try to direct anything. I want them to give me information, and I want to try to verify it through newspaper clippings and articles. We've had to move out to the garage because it is Christmas vacation, and kids and wife and dog are all home, and it's noisy in there. And this is the best place we're going to get some clean recording. So this is going to be the first session on this, and spirits, I invite all of you guys, victims and accused, to make an appearance today and give us some facts that we can verify. I believe that that's the whole point of them still coming through, Jack and Carol at least, that there's information out there that needs to be presented or cleared up, right? In the end, guys, I'll tell you right now that Donald Kelly was the only one of the three to be charged and found guilty of the murders of Jack and Carol. The other two guys, who were probably there, got off. Somehow they managed to convince everyone that Donald Kelly did all of this by himself. So anyway, without me saying anything else, I'm just going to ask each of the spirits to tell us your name and that you're here and present. So then I want to now say to Carol and Jack, what is it you guys feel we need to know? Why is it so important that you keep coming through and telling us how they shot and murdered you when Donald Kelly was, found guilty and did 2 life sentences and died in prison? Who pulled the trigger that night? Was it one person or was it more than one? Did Carol Ann's hair catch on fire when they shot her? In the last session, Carol and Jack were telling us how they were beat, shot, it said end it, and then that they were thrown in the river, slime. And then a man's voice came on and said, man, they were heavy. Who threw their bodies in the river? What happened to the 6,000 quarters that were stolen from the CNR Railroad? Can you tell me where those quarters are buried? Can I find those quarters? I propose to you spirits that the best way to prove that you guys are coming through and, we're sharing your story and it's the real story, that you're giving us this information, is to lead me to those coins. Get my hands on some actual evidence from this case or that era. I think that would be freaking amazing. Let's do it. Tell me where they are. Exactly. So twice now they've said buried, and I thought I heard hill. We know that Carol and Jack were not innocent. They were hanging out with these guys who were known armed robbers, bank robbers, attempted murderers. They shot the Case Populaire manager. So they're not innocent in all of this. Did Jack and Carol have anything to do with hiding or burying those coins? Were they part of that heist of the 6,000 quarters? So my interest and where I'm getting a gut feeling here, guys, and I'm going with gut feeling because that's all I have, is that yes, something to do with these quarters, this money, is why they're still contacting me, because there's a connection that, yes, I'm sharing their story by doing it, but they also feel like they can reward me by leading me to that. That's the feeling I'm getting. I had never heard of these quarters till I started reading these newspaper articles, and I can't find anywhere that says the 6,000 quarters were ever recovered. Am I correct in this thinking? Okay, so one other thing I want to touch on is the name Anthony. You clearly said Anthony in the last video, and I believe that was Carol because it was a female voice. Was that a nickname? Who was Anthony? All right, guys, a lot of stuff to analyze there. I need to go through and I need to fully read each one of these newspaper clippings that I found. There's over 30 of them. Sometimes they're full pages, sometimes it's multiple pages on the same story. I need to familiarize myself more with what happened. But right now I feel good about only knowing bits and pieces because, like I say, I don't want to influence what I'm hearing by what I've read, okay? If that makes any sense to you guys. So we're going to cover this in multiple parts, but I have no idea. I mean, I heard some things, Carol. I heard gun. I heard buried. I hear little bits and pieces here and there. But I won't know until I analyze it on the computer. So I thought that was mind-blowing, amazing stuff. The details they were telling us about this case, I can't explain it, guys. That a box can be giving me information on something we haven't talked about in months. It's mind-blowing to me. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of interest in it. So to keep me interested and to motivate me to keep doing this, because I feel that it needs to be done. They're not done with this story. I want you guys to comment. Do you have questions on this case? Is there something you want to know? Can you guys do some research on your own? Is there things you want answered? There's a lot to this case and these guys. The victims and the, accused. There was just so much before and after the case that happened with the whole breaking out of prison and there's just so much to this. Let me know in a comment, guys. Thanks for watching. We're not done with this yet.